Hello students, today we are going to study the limit test for sulfate. The limit test for the sulfate is based on the reaction between barium chloride and soluble sulfate in the presence of dilute hydrochloric acid. Turbidity is produced by precipitation of barium sulfate in a fine state of division. This is compared with the turbidity produced in the standard containing known quantity of sulfate and similarly treated. Sulfate, when it is reacted with barium chloride, it forming the precipitate of barium sulfate in the presence of dilute hydrochloric acid, and precipitation of barium sulfate, it gives the indication of the test is performed. The test is used to limit the amount of sulfate as an impurity in organic substance. This test is used to limit means what? This test is used to identify impurity in the form of sulfate in our test sample or in our inorganic compound or in a sample. Sulfate, it is reacted with the barium chloride in the presence of dilute hydrochloric acid to form the precipitation of barium sulfate, which gives the opalescence or turbidity. See the reaction involved this limit test for sulfate. SO4, it is a sulfate. BaCl2 barium chloride in the presence of hydrochloric acid HCl, it gives the precipitation of barium sulfate. Barium sulfate plus chloride. The barium sulfate reagent is used in the test which contains the barium chloride, sulfate, free alcohol and small amount of potassium sulfate. The addition of potassium sulfate increases sensitivity of the test and alcohol, prevent the supersaturation and more uniform turbidity is formed. See, barium sulfate, it is also having a reagent. Not only barium chloride is reacted, it is a form the barium sulfate reagent which contains barium chloride, sulfate free alcohol and small amount of potassium sulfate. Addition of potassium sulfate increases sensitivity of the test, and alcohol prevent the supersaturation and more uniform turbidity is formed. Next point is procedure for perform these limit test for sulfate. Limit test of the sulfate, it is performed in the glassware Nessler cylinder, for which one test sample and standard compound is prepared. For the test sample, first specific weight of compound is dissolved in water or a solution is prepared as directed in the pharmacopoeia and transferred in Nessler cylinder. In standard compound, take 1 ml of 0.1089% weight by volume solution of potassium sulfate in Nessler cylinder. See the standard compound, it is a permissible impurity which is permitted by Indian pharmacopoeia, and test sample is a sample where we have to perform our limit test for the sulfate. Second point, add the 2 ml of dilute hydrochloric acid in both solutions, in test sample and in standard compound. Third point is dilute up to 40 ml in Nessler cylinder. Then add 5 ml of barium sulfate reagent in both Nessler cylinder, test and standard. Keep aside for 5 minutes both test sample and standard sample and observe the opalescence and turbidity. Opalescence, it is produced in test sample, it should be less than the standard because standard it is given by Indian pharmacopoeia. It is a permissible impurity which is given by Indian pharmacopoeia. The opalescence produced in the sample solution should not be greater than the standard solution. If the opalescence produced in the sample solution is less than standard solution, the sample will pass the limit test for sulfate and vice versa. Reasons: hydrochloric acid helps to make the solution acidic. Potassium sulfate is used to increase the sensitivity of the test by giving the ionic concentration in the reagent. Alcohol helps to prevent the supersaturation and so produces a more uniform opalescence. Why these reasons are given? Hydrochloric acid, it makes the solution acidic. Potassium sulfate, it is used to increase the sensitivity of the test by giving the ionic concentration in the reagent. Alcohol helps to prevent the supersaturation and so produce a more uniform opalescence. Are you getting, students? Thank you.